So who are you guys? Who are you?
I'm Dan Cornell.
Yep. And what do you do?
I'm a principal at Denim Group, and I'm the principal responsible, probably the CTO or Chief Technology Officer equivalent.
Very cool. And who are you?
I'm John Dickson. I'm also principal, one of the business owners at Denim Group, and I'm more of a security person, security guy, professional. So we help clients build secure software, and we also help them manage the risk that their software represents.
Yeah.
We do that through testing, what you call penetration testing or code reviews. We also do a lot of training for developers, and then kind of help them build a software process that creates.
But you do this for Fortune 2000 companies, right? Big companies.
Big guys, big
and
folks.
You're the security experts. You keep the nasty people away from.
We try real hard.
Right.
Away from the money and away from. Well, we were talking before the cameras came on. You watched what happened at Twitter, where Twitter had somebody get into their systems, not really by hacking the systems, but by using new techniques of figuring out social cues, or figuring out where somebody had a weak password, or figuring out another way in other than through the firewall, right? Because most of the corporations now figured out how to stop you from going through the firewall. Now the bad guys are going other ways, right?
And in this instance, it wasn't even a technical hack. I mean, they weren't manipulating what's a vulnerability. They were really kind of guessing, making smart guessing at passwords based upon some context, and the fact that Twitter had most of their corporate documents online, which is perhaps not the case with others. So that was a big deal, and they did some very, instead of brute force attacking and doing a technical attack, they actually looked at naming schemes and then did some, some shared secrets. They looked at their social networking sites of some of the employees and made very smart guesses of what their shared secrets were.
Yeah, I've listened to Kevin Mitnick before, who was a famous hacker who got caught. He said most of the hacks that happen, most of the intrusions that happen are not done hardcore, break into some system. It's call the secretary, get a password, and then keep working the system until you figure out enough passwords to get into where you want to go, right?
It's called social engineering, and of course Kevin's really good at that, so he would argue that that's probably the most serious type of hack. I mean, there's a lot of technical ones too, but essentially you're manipulating the normal human nature to help somebody. So a social engineer attack would be somebody calling into a hospital saying, I'm Dr. Dickson, I'm about to operate on this patient, I need access to the system. I mean, who is not gonna, the PC support desk is not gonna support that person. Say, I'll reset your password, here's what it is, good luck, sir. And they do that in other environments as well. But social engineering is you have to think about it, you have to do something called pretexting, you have to understand some of the lingo, and really the Twitter attack was one like that, where they used a lot of, a smart approach. They didn't use anything technical, they just kind of did some smart guessing.
So what do you do for these big companies, and how is that different from who we usually talk to?
I mean, really where we come in for these organizations is to look at how they develop and how they deploy software, both things that they're developing internally as well as things that they procure. The typical focus in the security world has been very much locked on infrastructure. Okay, we need firewalls, we need intrusion detection, we need antivirus, and also policies. Let's make sure we have appropriate policies in place. The challenge is that attackers noticed this and they said, hey, this is hard, or we're not able to get in, do these infrastructure things that we used to be able to do. Let's look at the applications that they've deployed. And so, looking at the firewall, everything's locked down on the firewall except for ports 80 and 443, HTTP and HTTPS, because organizations have to deploy web applications for folks to use. And so the attackers said, you know what, we're going to stop focusing on infrastructure, focus on it less, and now we're going to look up at the application layer and say, now these applications are responsible for enforcing the security policies that are in place. And the challenge comes because most software developers who are building these applications don't have a background in developing secure software.
Most of the apps that have the weakest security aren't the Salesforce.coms or the SharePoints themselves, right? they're the stuff that's built around those, right?
Right. I mean, if you
that's where you find are you finding the holes in through those systems?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Microsoft, for example, has made a very strong push into securing their software process. They've got the SDL developed by Michael Howard and others, and so they've really done a 180, and they've done a great job of focusing on the security of their kind of infrastructure applications, the IIS, SharePoint, and things like that, and also large organizations like Salesforce.com. Obviously, they're focused on fixing their platform that they deploy things on, and so a really fruitful area to look for vulnerabilities is in the cracks between these systems, or in the places where these systems interact with extensions to those systems. And so that's certainly a big area of concern for a lot of organizations. And that's what we see in working with organizations that are trying to embrace Web 2.0 and mashups and social networking, all these different systems communicating with one another. Well, the cool thing about that is that you get this emergent behavior, and people can build things that you didn't think of before. From a security standpoint, the scary thing about that is when you start causing these components to interact with one another, those interactions are rife, or a very fertile area where you can find behaviors that the intended, or that they're not the intended behavior of the system.
Now, before we get into some tips for small businesses, what do you guys do? Are you providing consulting, or do you provide a tool set? Right? And you guys are a pretty sizable firm. You're
about
60 employees or something like that.
Yeah, we're about 60 folks. We're growing really quickly. We're on the Inc. 5000 for the second year running, which is great. Certainly we've done well in this environment. And what would you say, John?
I'd say in addition to the basics of Windows updates, antivirus updates, that's the easy stuff. But I think the Twitter attack illustrated one thing: is you have to use the same. You have to use a serious, pre-thought in selecting passwords for anything that you access from a corporate standpoint.
Now, what do you guys provide?
What we do is we will go in and really kind of help them understand how bad their software is, how many holes it has. Again, with this term called penetration test, where we try to break in from the outside and break the software. If we have access to software, we do what is called code reviews, where we look through lines of code to determine where there's risk and flaws.
Do you have tools that do that?
We have tools that do it in an automated way, and then really that represents 30% of the effort, but the rest is manual enumeration. And that's important because if you pointed an automated scanner at Twitter or at most of these sites, they would never identify flaws in the way that you do password resets. That is a logic or a kind of an architectural problem. And so in addition to doing the automated scanning, looking for kind of your garden variety technical flaws, what you really want to do is have guys like us or others look at this to make sure there's not an egregious vulnerability that people can walk in just unabated.
Yeah.
So now let's switch. Most of our customers can't afford you, right?
That's not our marketing message, for the record.
Well, most of the people who watch Building 43 can't afford, because we're talking to small business, people who own a retail store, people who own a manufacturing company, a small manufacturing company, something like that. Give me 3 or 4 tips for them. What should they be looking at in this new world? First of all, how do you set a password? Because a lot of people don't know.
What I do is don't use any English dictionary, any dictionary proper names, period, at all. Because the cracking passwords import an entire English dictionary, and they have a also specialized word lists like sports dictionaries or Star Trek term dictionaries. So anything that's in the English language as a word or a proper name is going to be broken. So what you want to do instead is I use, and most professionals use, passphrases, where you take the first letter of every single of a phrase. The cow jumped over the moon. You take the first letter of each, add a special character and a number. You won't forget it. And you can do iterations of that, but a password cracker is not going to get that because it's not a word in the English dictionary. Right. And back in, I would say, a decade ago, we did a bunch of scanning of password files. And in this part of the country, you put in Longhorns, Aggies, Spurs, Cowboys in the password crackers, and you got half the passwords. You don't want to have an attack that takes advantage of a dumb password scheme. So that is a military-grade password selection for anything that's hosted, Salesforce or whatever.
No, that sounds great. So you got a good password, but Twitter got in they got into Twitter because they had some lookups for password, right?
That's correct.
You go to Yahoo and you forget your password, and it says, well, tell me the answer to this question. What is your mom's maiden name, right? And my mom's maiden name's on the internet. So if I left that as an answer, somebody would be able to go in and fill that in and get my password, right?
Pick an obscure shared secret that isn't on your Facebook profile, probably step one, or that's out there. And there are those. They have options. I think a lot of them have other, that you can supply the challenge and then you have the response. But something that is not on your Facebook, if you can't remember anything, then go have a minimalist Facebook profile that doesn't have your dog's name, your daughter's name, and all that. So I think the military is going through this right now from what they call operational security, where they've got a lot of their active duty members have stuff up, and you can imagine the security implications of that. And so you just have to be conscious that the personal life that you have and the business life that you have online are largely, from an attacker standpoint, they don't care. There's no magic line. They grab that and then use it to kind of as pretext for that attack.
So the third thing we were talking about was that a lot of businesses lose their data because they're storing it on a server in the corner of the room, and building burns down, somebody gets ripped off, or the drive fails and all their records are gone. What would you recommend there?
I would recommend an either online backup system that's really easy, or just go to Best Buy and get a device. But the big deal about if you get a device at Best Buy, you got to take that off site after you back it up. So what I do is I have the little, I think it's Passport. At one point, I forget what it is, a terabyte or something crazy. Once a month, at the start of the month, every month I go and back up my hard drive and I take it to work. And at the end of the month, I do that. It's kind of a clumsy, old school way to do it. But that you got to do it, and that is probably the biggest risk out there. That, again, the dumb things, Windows updates, you don't do them, AV updates, you got to do all that stuff, and then don't have easy passwords.
Any last tips that that you're seeing attacks on businesses?
I mean, a lot of the organizations we work with have tens or hundreds of thousands of developers, but small organizations are also developing and deploying applications. I mean, if you look at the folks that are hosting at Rackspace, some of those are packaged apps that they're hosting, some of it's IT infrastructure, but a lot of it are public-facing websites, internal-facing internet-type sites. And so for organizations like that are concerned about the risk associated with the software that they're writing, and this is with groups that have 1 to 5 developers or 10 developers, smaller development teams. The important thing is to provide those folks with the information that they need so that they can develop those applications in a secure manner. And a great resource for this is the Open Web Application Security Project, or it's www.owasp.org. That's an organization. It's an open source focused organization in that they make all of their stuff available via various open source licenses, but they provide tools that folks can use to test the security of applications, as well as to build applications secure from the ground up. They have documentation projects where they provide training and guidance for developers. They've got the OWASP Top 10, which is a list of the top 10 vulnerabilities that are found in web applications, and they also sponsor local chapter meetings all around the world. And so because all of this is available for free, this is a great way for organizations that are concerned about security risk associated with their software applications. These resources are available for their development teams to go in and consume, and for their managers to go in and consume. We run the San Antonio chapter. I'm on the global membership committee, and we work with a couple of different projects, and that's been a great way for organizations that aren't necessarily Fortune 500. A lot of Fortune 500 use this as well. A lot of government agencies and organizations use this as well. But if you look at materials that small to medium-sized businesses can use to help secure their software, OWASP is a great organization to get involved with, and that's a great starting point.
Well, thank you so much. Where do we find you guys?
We're on the web at www.denimgroup.com, and our blog is Denim Group. Denim Group, like jeans. And our blog is denimgroup.typepad.com. Okay. And I'm at Daniel Cornell on Twitter, and
at John B. Dickson at Twitter.
Great, thank you so much.
Well, thank
Thanks
you
for coming out.
Thank you for coming out.